This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. We've turned the page and we're talking about the Tennessee game. What I want to do today is talk about my bold predictions for this week's game. Some of the matchups I think are going to be interesting. Some of the things that I think are interesting about this Tennessee Titan game. And the first thing I want to start with is, what is that home crowd environment going to be like this week? I've noticed, and this is just me surveying like the online fans. So this might not be real life. Let's always give a chance. Like, everything you see on Twitter is not how people actually feel. But I've surveyed that the people online, they're on edge. And I've seen that stadium when everybody's on edge. It gets a little unhelpful at times, right? We start booing the offense so loud that they can't hear their checks. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how many bad drives, like if they don't start out with a good drive, or if they have a slump in the middle of the game where they have 2 or 3 bad drives, like how many drives until the stadium starts to turn on this team in week 3. It's going to be something to see. That environment's going to be something to pay attention to. I have no idea what to expect, but given what I have seen online, I don't know if that's going to be the most friendly environment you've ever seen at a home game for the home team, if they don't start fast and they don't start putting up points early in this game, which is possible, right? Another thing that I think is interesting about this game is Ryan Tannehill. Because I have said this for a while. Quarterbacks, once they get to 35, 9 times out of 10, they start looking cooked. Ryan Tannehill is exactly 35. Now, week 1, he looked cooked. Week 2, he looked a lot better. But he was going up against a Chargers defense that has struggled mightily in the last, 10 quarters that they've played football. Think about what's happened to the Chargers. They've let 3 teams back to back come back on them. Now, a lot of people thought Brandon Staley should have been fired after his first week, after that playoff game where he gave up a 27-point lead or something like that to the Jaguars. And people thought he should be fired after that. Well, he did that. He came back week 1, gave up another lead, let Tua throw for 500 yards, and then came back this week and had the audacity to let Ryan Tannehill look decent after he looked completely done. And I'm not joking about this 35-year-old quarterback thing. Like, look at when Joe Flacco completely tailed off. Look at when Andy Dalton completely tailed off. Look at when Matt Ryan completely tailed off. Hell, look at when Cam Newton got out the league. A lot of quarterbacks, you look at 35, never the same again. It's a gradual buildup to that, and it's been that for Ryan Tannehill, where it's like, hey, he's worse and worse and worse every year, and then they get to 35, and that's when they're unplayable. It's usually the line. So Ryan Tannehill is going to give you some opportunities to get that ball. He's going to get you some opportunities to get behind the sticks. He's going to give you some opportunities to shut this defense down. The game plan for this week is not going to be much different than it was last week. It's not. Honestly, they have worse receivers. Right? Like, a better quarterback, a better running back, but worse receivers. So the game plan is not going to be that much different. So we'll see what happens, but Ryan Tannehill is definitely somebody to pay attention to in this game. I think the defense should expect to dominate. And I think that they can. The one thing on the Titans offense that scares you is always one Derrick Henry himself. My bold prediction for this week is that the Browns will look great versus Derrick Henry for like 25 of his 28 carries. But there will be 3 carries in which Derrick Henry completely goes off. And I don't know what that's going to do to the stat total. I think he will be above 100 yards, but I think it'll be one of them games where it's like, hey, he broke off 3 big runs, but outside of those runs, he averaged like 2 yards a carry. The reason I think this is because of multiple reasons. The reason I think this is because of multiple reasons. Not my best use of the English language there. But the reason I think this for Derrick Henry is because of how the Browns defend the run. The Browns are really aggressive. The Browns like to run lighter personnel packages. The Browns like to run 5-man fronts with those lighter personnel packages. And we saw versus Najee the benefits and the negatives of that when it comes to stopping the run. The benefit of doing that is that you can get to the edge before Derrick Henry gets downhill, and you can get him behind the line of scrimmage. You can get him for 2 yards, and you can stop him most of the time. But the negative is you're sending smaller bodies, athletic bodies, quick bodies, but smaller bodies at Derrick Henry, which means every once in a while you're going to have him wrapped up in the backfield and you're not going to bring him down. And since you're so aggressive, half of your defense is already going to be on the side of the field where you missed him. So all he has to do is go opposite field and he's going to get a huge chunk. There were 2 or 3 runs in that Steelers game where I felt like if it wasn't Najee, that would have been a touchdown. If it was somebody with Derrick Henry's speed and Najee's size, basically, if that were Derrick Henry, that would have been 6. There were a couple runs there. There are going to be a couple moments like that. Will this Browns secondary look as dominant? I tend to think so. Ryan Tannehill is a veteran quarterback, so it is possible that he finds some holes in his defense. And there are holes in his defense, by the way. Like the secondary coverage, like there are places where quarterbacks can execute if the pressure does not get there. But the question is, can Ryan Tannehill take advantage of that? I'm not 100% convinced. Another prediction that I have in this game is that the Browns will finally be plus in the turnover margin. The Browns were -2 in turnovers last week. They were -2 in the turnovers the week before. Overall in the season, they're -4 in turnovers. This week, they're going to be positive in the turnover margin. I think this is going to be a much better week for the offense. I think this is going to be a much better week for the, well, not a better week. The defense held them to -9 yards in the fourth quarter. It's going to be a good week for the defense, and I think this is going to be a much better week for the offense. Speaking of the offense, let's talk about Deshaun Watson. A lot of people upset, a lot of people angry, a lot of people furious, a lot of people here, this and that, a lot of people panicking. I think Deshaun's going to throw for 300 yards. Whether that calms people down, I have no clue. I highly doubt it. People ain't going to calm down based on how angry they were on Monday night because he has a good game against the Titans. I think people are going to hang on to that Monday Night Football game as long as they can. Deshaun can throw for 300 yards like 4-5 times. I don't think people are going to let that Monday Night Football game go. And that could be rightful if you see it that way, but that's what it's going to be. So, yeah, I think Deshaun's going to have a 300-yard passing day. I think you're finally going to see Elijah Moore get this ball downfield. When I looked at the tape, and you'll see this more in the film breakdown later today, when I looked at the tape, I saw that there were moments where he was just a little bit late. or just didn't see the right thing, got a little confused. Like there's a reason to believe that like a good game could be around the corner for him. I think that this will be a good opportunity. Again, with Deshaun, I'm not about to move the needle either way with him until I see him do multiple really good games in a row, right? Like that's when you're going to want to move the needle on him. But I don't expect him to put in another performance like Monday. It will be better. It will be a 300-yard performance. I don't know if it's going to be the 300-yard performance we've been waiting for, but it will be a 300-yard performance in my opinion. My next prediction is that Kareem Hunt, who a lot of people are excited about, people are going to be upset because he gets like 6 carries. I don't know how much Kareem Hunt plays. The fact that they signed him on Tuesday so he could be ready for the first practice of the week tells me that there's a chance he might play a lot. But I mean, like he hasn't done any camp. He hasn't been in anybody's camp. I have no idea what kind of game shape Kareem Hunt's in, and it's impossible that he's in any type of game shape, given that he didn't play in the preseason. So I expect him to get like 6 carries. I don't think he's going to get a ton. I think he'll be good in those 6 carries, but I think he's going to get 6 carries. Next prediction, Myles Garrett is going to have a big sack number game. I think we've been waiting for it for a while. I think this is the day where he gets multiple sacks. Ryan Tannehill holds the ball just long enough. They like to have these routes develop downfield. I think Myles is finally going to get his opportunity to get back there. Look, with Myles Garrett, it's kind of been like when people complain about the sack numbers not being there, you have to realize it's kind of like complaining about Darrelle Revis in his prime not getting a ton of interceptions. Teams are just going so far out their way, more so than any other player not named Micah Parsons. Well, not even with Micah Parsons, they don't avoid him as much as they avoid Myles. Like teams avoid Myles so much that it's going to be impossible for him at times to get those numbers against most guys, especially in division where they're so used to knowing how dominant he is. So now that he's playing out of division foe, maybe a team might be less informed enough to hold on to the ball for like longer than 2.5 seconds. And I think Myles is going to get there a couple times. My last big prediction is that the rushing game is going to be effective. I think we're going to see something from not just Deshaun in the running game, not just Jerome Ford in the running game, but I think Kareem Hunt and his 6 carries will be pretty good. And I think Pierre Strong will have a moment or two and his run game will still look effective. And I think we're going to walk out of this game hopefully feeling a lot better about the offense than we came into it. Now, they're still an aggressive front. Jeffrey Simmons on Wyatt Teller, that's a matchup to be concerned about. There are a lot of other things in this matchup. It's not going to be all pudding and gravy this week. It's still a tough game versus the Titans. But that's what some of my bold predictions are. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.